Okay. So we're going to be talking about Illustrator today, and you're probably wondering if you're here, like what makes Illustrator unique and different versus things like Photoshop and InDesign. Well, Illustrator is a vector-based graphic editor. So what that means is the images you create in Illustrator, you can scale up and scale down without losing resolution. So that's really important for us as landscape architects because we're working on huge scales, like landscapes versus a piece of paper. Like the scaling of our designs have to be represented in both places. So that's why we use Illustrator versus something like Photoshop. Photoshop is great because it's great for like um, for photo editing and for artwork. But you can only get your Photoshop images to a certain size before you start losing resolution. And then InDesign is great for like laying documents out. But if you really want to focus on vector-based drawing, Illustrator is your go-to tool. And you're going to be learning a lot of different softwares during the course of your program here, right? Rhino, SketchUp, AutoCAD, and each have a function. Illustrator's function is to like really to like I think render your images and just bring beauty to a lot of the stuff you do in other programs. So it's important. Definitely learn it. This image just shows the difference between like a vector drawing and a raster drawing. So raster drawings are just really pixelated when they get to like a certain size, and then vector drawings you can just scale infinitely to as big and as small as you can imagine. Okay, so we're going to use Paley Park as an example. We're gonna scale the Paley Park image. We're gonna draw and trace over it, and we're gonna produce something that looks a little bit like this. Or we can produce some of these like um, inventory and analysis drawings using different like images and annotation techniques to represent like circulation, noise, etc. Okay, and then here is my like checklist of all the tools and things we can talk about in the tutorial. And then last thing I wanted to show you how to do is use Illustrator to do like live tracing so that you can do these like elevation images like this too. This is what you might see a lot of your like UFT counterparts doing drawings like this. So I just want to show you ways you can do it too, and it's up to you if you want to do it or not. Okay, so let's get straight into Illustrator. I have Illustrator opened right now. I'm going to start a new drawing. I'm going to make my drawing fit an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, right? So I'll start in inches. I'll make it 8.5 by 11 so I know that it'll print well. Create. Here we go. And I'm going to bring my images into it now, my base images that I'm going to trace. So here I have a drawing of Paley Park in New York City, and I'm just going to drag it and drop it onto the middle of my page here. Okay, so now that my image is here, we want to make sure the image is scaled properly. I'm going to use the scale 1 to 200. I'm going to make sure this image is 1 to 200. Your assignment might say you need a different scale. And I'm gonna help us think about like how to convert scales here. So right now, if you look at this image here, we have a 3 meter square, right? And I need to make sure that that's at a 1 to 200 scale. I'm gonna start by like thinking about what 1 to 200 means. Um, and we'll start simple. So 1 centimeter is 100 centimeters in a 1 to 100 scale. So what does that mean for a 1 to 200 scale? Well, that means either 1 centimeter equals 200 centimeters or half a centimeter equals 100 centimeters. That's a 1 to 200 scale. Now, how do I get um, 3 meters down to a 200, 1 to 200 scale? Well, I want 3 meters on this side. So 3 meters is 300 centimeters. So if I triple this side, I have to triple this side too. So I get 1.5 centimeters. Um, it equals 3 meters at a 1 to 200 scale. Okay, that makes sense to me. So now I'm going back into Illustrator. And I used inches to set up my document because I wanted to make sure it printed properly. And this is one of the joys of working in Canada. You have to like work between um, imperial and metric. So we're gonna do it now. We're gonna go to document setup, and I'm gonna go back into centimeters. So now I'm making sure my units are in centimeters. Okay. And then now I'm going to draw a line that's 1.5 centimeters long, and I'm going to see how close it is to this 3 meter line. And I'm going to scale my drawing down so that the 3 meters and the 1.5 centimeters match. Then I know my drawings to scale. Okay, so I'm going to use my line segment tool here to draw a 1.5 centimeter line. I'm going to just click. And when I just do one click, it brings me up this dialog box, which I can specify the length of the line. I'm going to specify it as 1.5 centimeters, and I'm going to change the angle to 0 so it's flat. And there you go. There I have my 1.5 centimeter line. I'm going to change the color so I can see it more easily. And I'm going to change the thickness of the line again so I can see it more easily. And I'm going to move that line up. As you can see, I'm still on the line tool, and when I hover over this line, I still get the crosshairs, which is the line tool, but I actually want to, I can't move this line with the crosshairs. So I need to select this selection tool to move the line. Now I can select it. Okay, and as you can see, my line is a little bit shorter than the 3 meters. So I need to scale this drawing down so that the 3 meter matches the line I drew. Okay, now something wacky is happening as I'm like changing the size of this image. Uh, it's changing in free form. That's not good. I want to hold shift down. When I hold shift down, that controls the aspect ratio of the image that I'm manipulating, right? If I didn't hold shift down, I'm not holding shift, the aspect ratios of the base map image are in free form, but if I hold shift, the aspect ratios are preserved. Okay. So now I've scaled the 3 meters down to the 1.5 centimeter line. And there you go. My drawing is now at scale, 1 to 200 meter scale. I'm going to select everything and move it to the center. Next thing I'm going to do is show you the concept of layers in Illustrator. Layers are just a great way to keep your drawing organized. So I'm going to call this layer base map. And you can see the color of the layer is blue, and the wireframe outlines in my drawing are blue. So I know that that image is in the base map layer, right? And if you just want to double check, you can toggle your visibility using the eye button here, the shape of the eye. You toggle your visibility, it turns your base layer on and off. Okay, next thing we're going to do is draw a scale, right? So you've scaled your drawing down, but you have this like 3 meter square as your scale. You might actually want a more um, interesting scale than that, right? Maybe. So I'm going to take, let's see, I'm going to use my rectangle tool here, and I'm going to draw a box, and that's going to represent a 3 meter. That's going to represent a 3 meter box in my scale. And you can see how I like clicked and I was dragging the base image down. I don't want to do that. I want to lock the base image. I'm going to delete that line. I'm going to lock the base image um, so that it doesn't move around. But before I do that, I'm going to create a new layer and call that scale. Scale. And I'm going to move this little drawing that I made into that scale layer. So I'm going to actually just click this blue icon here and move it up to the red icon, right? In the scale layer. Does that make sense? So that whatever I just drew here is in the right layer now. Watch. So now I turn my scale layer on and off, and that little box is in the scale layer. And then my base map is still in my base map layer. Okay? So I don't move my base map around, I'm actually going to lock it. I can just click that little blank space in between the eye icon and the layer name icon, and that'll help me lock my layer. Okay, now you can actually move it around. Okay, great. So now I'm going to continue making my scale icon. I'm going to get rid of the outline for the scale and just give it a fill. So let's see here. I'm going to fill it with green. No, I'm going to fill it with black because I want to have my scale really simple. And I'm going to increase the height of it like that. I duplicated it. And how did I duplicate this? Right? I created the second image. How did I duplicate that? Again, I'm highlighting on the selection tool and I'm holding down the Option or Alt button and see how my mouse changes to a duplication icon. I can click that image and duplicate it. I'm also holding Shift down at the same time. And what holding Shift down does is help me make sure that the duplication I do stays on the same axis as the original image. So there you go. And actually, I'm going to bring outlines back to both of these because the second scale bar, I'm going to get rid of the black on the inside and just have white on the inside. So now you can start to see how the scale bar is getting formed. I can highlight both of these again, hold down Option on my Mac or Alt on my PC and Shift. Whoops, I'll hold down Option, duplicate this, hold down Shift to make sure that um, again I'm on the same axis. Okay, and then I'm going to use the type tool now. I'm going to type in 0 here because that's 0 meters. I'm going to hold down Option or Alt and duplicate it again and type in 3 here because that's 3 meters. I'm going to do that again for here to get 6 meters. I'm going to do it 2 more times to get 9 meters. And then one more time to get 12 meters. And that's my scale. So you're going to come across lots of different styles for scales. You can decide how you want to draw your scale based on the look and feel you're trying to create. If you need ideas, just Google it, scale bar options, and you'll come up with lots of different options. Okay, so now see how when I turn on and off the scale layer, my scale bar is there and then it disappears. The other thing I can do is I can highlight everything and then I can right click and hit group. So that way when I move my scale bar around, I'm moving the entire group instead of just the individual scale components. Okay, so that's cool. I'll put that down and out of the way for now. Next thing I'm going to do is draw my north arrow. And this north arrow is pretty clean. It's pretty sleek, so I'm going to stick with it. But you can, as you've seen lots of different north arrows and lots of different styles for north arrows. So it's up to you what you want to do for your drawing. I'm going to just exactly draw this one using the ellipse tool. So here in my side menu, I've chosen the ellipse tool and I can start to draw. And you can see now I can draw an ellipse, I can draw a perfect circle, but in order to preserve the ratio so it's perfect circle, I'm holding down Shift. So when you're drawing, you got these little like tools that you can use on your keyboard to assist you with the drawing. Try holding down Shift, Option, and Alt and Command or Control, and those will give you unique features that enhance your ability to draw. And that's true in all the softwares you learn, whether it's AutoCAD or even Miro or Rhino. Shift, Option, and Alt give you enhanced abilities to manipulate your objects. So just play around with all that. Okay, so I drew the elliptical here in the middle. I'm gonna make sure it has an outline and it has no fill. So it looks like that. And then I'm going to use the line segment tool to draw this part of the north arrow, just like that. Okay. And you can hit escape. See how you're just constantly in the line segment tool until you move on to a different tool. You can, you have to move on to a different tool to get rid of it. And often I like just being in the selection tool by default, because it's just easier to manipulate your objects when you're in the selection tool. There, I just deleted a bunch of these. Um, so you can actually get to the selection tool by hitting V on your keyboard. So there's all these like keyboard shortcuts you can do. And you can highlight over the menu and see the keyboard shortcuts. So line segment tool is backslash. So if I hit backslash on my keyboard, I get the line segment tool, which gives me these line segments, right? And if I hit V, I'm getting the selection tool. Okay. So now I have my north arrow. I'm going to put that into a different layer and call it north arrow. And I'm going to move this little red dot into the north arrow layer, which moves that whole north arrow into that layer. And there you go. So now when I turn off my base map, see my base map is gone, but I still have my north arrow and my scale bar there. Any questions so far? No? Okay, welcome back. Tapered on the outside and wide on the inside, just like that. You can also change the opacity. You can change the roundness. Your lines can look like brush strokes. You have so many different options with the strokes in Illustrator. So have fun. Enjoy
Sorry,
using.
Matt, can you repeat that one more time? The dash lines, they had it on pause.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. And
I'll
then you could
delete
show
that.
zigzag as well.
Okay, sounds good. Is it still going? Yeah. Okay, great. So we're gonna show you how to do dash lines again. I'll use the pen tool and I'll draw a zigzag line with the pen tool. And you can see because I've already created a stroke, it's showing up here. But what happens if I didn't have a stroke specified already, right? So what happens if I didn't have a dashed line? My line would look like that, right? So now I'm going to show you how to bring the dashed line back. I select my stroke, click stroke, and I check dash line. And again, I can change the caps so they can be like a butt cap, a rounded cap, or a projecting cap. They have funny names. I can also change the distance between the dashes, and I can change the width of the dashes themselves. For example, if I wanted a bigger dash, I'll make that 8 points, and then my gap can be 12 points. As an example, you can do anything you want and apply that to your zigzag line here. So you can just imagine drawing so many different dash lines with this tool. Let's go back to Miro and just show you like what another student did a few years ago. They did dash lines that look like this. They changed different arrowheads. You can do so many different things here. Okay. So any questions around dash lines? No? Okay, we'll keep going. Again, let's go back to Zoom and see what we have yet to cover. We've actually done a lot, but maybe we can go through textures and shadows. Then I'll show you how to do some more fun stuff like this image here using Live Trace and Google search to get some of these like background images. I'll also show you how to do text and text online. Okay, let's do that. Let's do text and text online first. Okay, so here, let's draw like a fun line and say this is a line you want to annotate with text. You can do that really easily with Illustrator by using the text tool. So the text tool, I actually just hit T on my keyboard to bring up the text tool. And once I have that selected, actually I don't want just the plain text tool, I want type on a path text tool. So there's no shortcut for that. So I actually have to use the menu to get type on a path text tool. And I just click on the path that I want text along. And as you can see, it just automatically fills it out. So I can say, hi, friends. How are you? You know, you can also change the font that you apply. If you want it Helvetica, because you're a design purist, you can make it Helvetica. You can change you can change so many things, the size, all that stuff. If you click on, just like how you clicked on stroke, you can click on character and you can get the full character menu. You can change text size. You can change text spacing. So maybe I'll make this 20. So you have a lot more space between the text. Um, yeah. Another thing you might want to do when you're typing text along a line segment is you might want it on the inside of the line segment versus the outside. So you can actually see how I'm grabbing this blue line up here? I'm just grabbing it and moving it down to under the line. So suddenly my text is following the bottom side of the line. Really cool, right? Um, you'll want to do this if you're drawing like topography lines and you want to give the elevations of each of the lines. You might want to use a tool like this. Or if you're labeling a river, you might want to label the river with text on a path line. Okay, so that's that. You can also just write plain text. You can use the type tool, draw the box you want to type in, and type in the box. It's super easy. You can also do vertical type text, super easy too. It's self-explanatory. I won't give too many details there. But of course, you might want to use this in your maps too. Okay. Next thing we'll do is I just want to talk a little bit more about some of the setup of Illustrator before we get into some of the more image tracing stuff. One thing we didn't talk about were the artboards yet. So let's talk about the artboards. The artboard is this page or canvas that I'm working on. And if you can remember, we made this artboard the same size as an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. If I want another canvas, or artboard, I can just draw one to whatever size I want. And why these are important is when you export your images out of Illustrator, you can decide to export all of your drawings in one crazy cluster, which is a little confusing, or you can export your drawings by each artboard. So see, I have two artboards here. I go to File, Export, Export as, and I can specify the file format I want to export it as. Um, you can look up yourself like what file format works best for you. I tend to mostly do like JPEG or PNG, and I use the artboards, and I can specify the range of the artboards that I want to export. So only the drawings that are within those artboards will get exported, nothing else. Okay, so that's what artboards are good for. I'm just going to get rid of this artboard because I don't need it anymore. And now I'm going to show you how to do some of the we're working in plan view right now, right? We're looking top down and Illustrator is great for making plans, especially plans that you're going to colorize or render. But what you also want to do to visualize your designs is create elevations, right? And perspectives. So let's give you some ideas for how to do elevations. What I want to do is the image I showed on the other screen, which is a couple of trees, maybe a fountain and some silhouettes. And what I find we're gonna like cheat a little bit by stealing images from the internet and using Illustrator's tools to trace them. It'll be really quick and fun. So let's go into Google. Let's look up tree silhouette. And I often find when I type in PNG, that'll give me exactly the type of image I want. So I go to images and I find these tree silhouettes. They're really beautiful. Look at that one. That's perfect. I'm just gonna copy it, copy image. And you see here how there's like a checkered background. That shows you that the checkered background is actually like nothing. There's nothing there. It's just the silhouette. And you're here, you see it's a white screen, right? So there's nothing there. The checkered background just indicates that it's a silhouette. Paste it. Okay, you can see it's huge. It pasted it so massive, so you might not actually need to trace this because it might be like a good enough size for you already. But what happens if you wanted to do an outline of this versus if you wanted to do like see how its fill is black? What happens if you just wanted to do like a thin sketch around the edge? So you do want it traced. Super easy. You go into objects and you go image trace, make and expand. Image trace, make and expand. It's a big object. It's going to proceed slowly, but that's okay. We're going to let it happen. When you do this, you might want to choose smaller images than I did. But you can see now you have actually this like vector-based image, and it's traced all of these lines, which is really, really cool. So when you trace images, often it's there's like multiple layers within the image. So that's what the expand is about. Making it draws the outline, expanding it expands it out from to all the different assets within that image itself. Um, so what I'm going to do is actually just delete all the white space around the outside by isolating it. The other thing I'm going to do is like ungroup it. So I click this and I right click and I'm going to ungroup to make sure that I'm just selecting the black image on the inside. Let's see if I got it. Oh, I didn't get it all. This is a really complex image, but it's good enough. I think you can kind of get what's possible here. Um, see how it's just the silhouette now? I can get rid of the fill and I can apply line work and I'll make the line work a little bit thinner. So you have just the outline of the drawing. So it's pretty nice. And then if you want a second one, you can just duplicate it, you can shrink it, you make it a little bit smaller. And then the other thing you can do is a trick I have for trees is I use object transform, flip, or reflect. And you can reflect on a vertical axis or a horizontal axis. But in this case, for the tree, you want it reflect on a vertical axis. And again, turn preview on. You can also rotate it by angle, but of course, we don't want to do that for right now. So we'll keep the angle 0 and hit OK. I guess I wanted to be a 90-degree axis, not a 0-degree axis. Anyway, so you can get different trees like that. The other thing you can do is just go find another tree. Maybe this is a good one. Copy, image, paste. Some of you might also have this button up here, image trace. So just click it and expand it. Double click so you just have the tree on the inside selected. Delete whatever's left over that you don't need. Paste it back, the tree, right? Shrink it down to whatever size you need it to be. And if you want the outline again, make the stroke whatever you want it to make and make the fill whatever you want it to make. Maybe the line thickness is a little too thick, make it a little bit thinner. And so you get a tree that looks like that. You can also give a white fill if you want the trees to overlap but not show the line work through each other. And again, that's probably too much line weight. When you're doing your drawings, you want multiple line weights to show hierarchy. But sometimes there's a thing that's like too bold lines, right? If lines are too dense, too bold, that might distract you from your drawing. Okay, so that's like a slightly nicer tree, so we'll keep that one. Okay, so you can do that image trace with anything, right? Not just trees. You can do it with, let's say you want a person. So let's look up person silhouette PNG. Let's take who should we take? Anyway, there's so many options here. Let's take the easiest one. Copy, paste. Okay, you have this person here now. Shrink the person down to size. Zoom in. And I'm just using to zoom in and out on Illustrator. I'm just using my touchpad to zoom in and out. But you can also zoom in and out using the zoom tool here. And you can press Z on your keyboard to access the zoom tool. You can use your scroller on your mouse to zoom in and out. Okay, now I have the person here. I hit image trace and expand. Now I have the person. And again, this is the complicated thing about image trace and expand is you get so many layers. You get like the background layer and then you get the foreground layer. So I just deleted the background layer. I took the guy out of the foreground layer and I am going to make him white and I'm going to make his outline black and I'm going to change the stroke to 2.5 and there you go. It's beautiful, right? So and you can do it with anything. But now I'll show you some situations where things are going to go wrong because you're going to image trace things and it's not going to work out. The reason I'm doing tree silhouette, person silhouette is that Illustrator's tracing one color, right? And that one color is black, so everything within that black line is a part of my image trace image. What happens if I do this? Image person like this, and I take let's take this person because I know it'll be relatively easy to draw, but also complicated. See how there's multiple colors here on that person? I paste them in here, scale them down to size, and I hit image trace here. See how Illustrator just wants to trace around one color, and that color that is tracing around is his skin color here. So, or his pant color. So that gets a little bit annoying. So you have options with image trace. You can do image trace three colors. And what that gives you is an image of three colors. You can do image trace of six colors, 12 colors, 16 colors. You just have lots of options here. And then if you expand this and ungroup it, each of the different colors is like an isolated shapefile now. Right? So now this is a vector work piece that you can change the color of if you wanted to. Um, just an example. You're probably not going to do it for an image like this, but it's just an example of the types of things you can do with image trace. Okay, now you can imagine if you wanted to do an elevation drawing just like this, you can just imagine adding more elements into this. Like you might want a fountain, bring in a fountain. You might want different species of trees. You might want a dog. You might want more people. Just do your Google search and type in silhouette PNG. Whoops. Right? And then you'll get exactly what you want. Dog silhouette PNG. Get your dog fountain silhouette PNG. You got your fountain. So there you go. There's your cheat sheet for your drawings. Okay, so I think that was everything I wanted to show you, unless I'm seeing anything on my checklist that we haven't shown you yet. Okay, actually, I'm seeing a few things that I haven't shown you. There's shadows. Okay, let's show you quickly how to.
And Matt, sorry, can you actually show then the opacity fill and light opacity once more and the arrowhead? Because I haven't recorded that one.
Okay, sounds
That's
good.
it.
Okay, shadows. Um, you're probably going to use shadows more on trees than anything else. So let's make a little tree symbol here, right? And let's put a little stump in the tree, just like that. Let's make the line outside line of the tree black, make the stroke a little bit bigger. Let's make sure not to have a stroke on the dot of the tree. Um, okay, now let's add a shadow to this tree. And again, you can also do effect and roughen again to make the tree more interesting, just like that. Now let's add a shadow to this, also in effects, stylize, drop shadow. You can specify the opacity of the drop shadow. Let's make it 100%. You can specify the offset. Maybe you don't want to offset as much. Maybe you don't want to offset at all. Maybe you are doing it so that the sun is directly over you, and that's how you can do shadow. There's a couple ways to do shadow, right? You might want to do shadow like that with the effects tool. You might also want to do shadow like this. You might want to like just duplicate the image just like that. And let's send this duplicated image I made into the background. So I'm using command and parentheses, back parentheses to shift it to the back. If you don't want to use a shortcut, the keyboard shortcuts to do that, you can go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. So now this is at the back. And then I can make this, I can get rid of the line work and I can make this um, like light gray and I can do shadow like that too. If I do shadow like this, I might want to do it with some transparency. So I can go to um, transparency. I go to Windows and I find transparency here. I pull it up and I can change the opacity to whatever I want. So that's the top one where the transparency is changing. Maybe I want the top to be 100 still, but I want the back one to have a transparency of 50. And then I select all of these and I group them. So the shadow can have a transparency and the foreground doesn't need to have a transparency, but at least these things are grouped together. So I showed you two ways to do shadows. You can do shadows with vector-based objects, or you can do shadows with different effects. And I showed you how to do transparency too. So right now the shadow has a transparency, but because I grouped these objects, the transparency is 100. I can actually change the transparency of this whole group object now to, let's say, 70%. So that applies to this whole object now. You can see how the layering and the grouping makes a difference for how you apply your effects and your transparencies and your gradients. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So next thing I'm going to do is I think I have to re-show you how to do the gradients. I'm just going to draw a straight up circle here and apply a gradient. So again, I just click the gradient tool in the menu bar here, or if you can't find it, go to Windows, Gradients, comes up on its own, and apply a gradient. I can customize the gradient by clicking on these two round buttons in the bottom, and that lets me change gradient colors. I can also add more colors by clicking on the space um, in between those two dots. So if I wanted to make a gradient that was like multicolored, I could. But obviously be careful with color, right? You don't want to present too much color in your drawings because it's going to be distracting. Like that's so distracting. But at least you know now how to do gradients, and how to customize those gradients. You can also do things like make spiral gradients, radial gradients, which might be helpful for trees, or you can also change the angle of gradients. So you can have it at a 45-degree angle or a 90-degree angle. You just have like hyper customization of colors and gradients in Illustrator. Okay. So you got gradients. And again, you can also change the transparency here, right? Of that, that's the whole image. Now, what happens if, like, see how the outline changed transparency and the fill changed transparency? What happens if you want only the fill to change transparency and not the outline? Well, you could do this a couple ways. One way is that you could actually duplicate the two images and get the outline out of one, change the fill of the one with outline to 50%, get rid of the fill in in um in this one. Sorry, I just have the zoom menu in the way here. Um, you can get rid of the fill here. I'm going to do it by going into swatches, get rid of the fill, and then now I just have my outline, and I can select both of these, and I can right click it, and I can go to arrange, or I can go to um one sec. I just have a lot of things open. I can go to align. So you see how here in my view I have a line. I can align these horizontally and I can align them vertically so they're now stacked. So I have the outline that's full opacity, so opacity of I guess 100%, and then I have the fill that has an opacity of 50%. And then I can just go ahead and group these. So that's kind of cool, right? You're gonna encounter that in your drawings. It was a hard thing for me to learn early on, but there you go. Hopefully you won't have problems now. Okay, and I think one thing I'll show you now is the arrowheads again. So I'm using the pen curve tool, and again, my last setting was for the gradient and the circle that I drew, which is why it was applied to the pen tool. Don't be afraid, just get rid of the fill and change your stroke color to whatever you want it to be, like that. So I have just a plain black line. And if I want to add an arrowhead to this, again, I just hit stroke and I can change the arrowhead. I can customize the arrowheads on that stroke. So you can see there's two options here, right? There's an arrowhead here and an arrowhead here. I can have like different symbols on different sides of the line segment. So I have an anchor on one side and I have an arrowhead on the other side. The other thing I can do is change the scale. Maybe I want the anchor segment to be 50% the size. I can just change that 50% the size. Or if I want to swap the anchor with the arrowhead, I can just hit swap and see how they flip. Really cool. Another thing you can do is this button here means link in the arrowhead scales. So now these scales are linked. So if I change the scale of the back arrowhead to 95, it's going to change the front arrowhead too. So there's lots of little tricks. Um, and that's the thing with Illustrator. There's so many tools, there's so many ways to do things. The best way to learn Illustrator is just do it. I know sometimes when you're learning new software, it's like you have bricks on your hand and you're trying to like do things and you can't because everything's breaking all the time because it feels so clunky. But actually, when you get used to it, it really is quite an elegant tool to design anything you can imagine. Um, so be curious, look into like press every button, see what happens when you press this, when you press that. make sure your document's saved and if you're being experimental like this, do it in like a separate file where you're not worried about like deleting something or erasing something. Because that's t so easy to do in Illustrator too, like deleting, erasing, not saving, losing your files, especially in this field where you're spending hours and hours producing these drawings. Make sure you have saved copies, backed up copies. Um, and then once you have all that, then be experimental and try things out, and be curious with what all these buttons are, especially under effects. Like there's so many cool things that you can do with all these effects tools and Windows. Like look how many tools there are under Windows. There's just so much here. And for manipulating objects under objects, there's so much here. Clipping mask, compound path. These are all things that do really cool things. And if you're curious what they do, try it out. But also, you don't know what compound path is, like look it up. There's tons of amazing YouTube tutorials on each of these tools, and often each of these tutorials are like 1 or 2 minutes long, because they're specific for each tool. So they're definitely worth watching. Okay, I think I think that's everything I wanted to cover.